I love that. I think that's so important because basically what you're saying is just like, just be curious about what you're doing, right? Just be honest. Like, hey, maybe I'm eating a little too many sweets and I'm not walking as much or whatever. Or it's like, do what works for you, but to have like a one rule of like, it needs to be this and you need to eat like this. It's like, we're each so different. So that feels like
Yeah.
very freeing within that answer.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. This is our first full episode of 2021, so I have to say Happy New Year. Amazing. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, of course, always here with you. And today we have a new voice joining me. This is my friend Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome to the pod.
Hello, hello. Thank you, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So guys, Stephanie and I met through business networking, and it's just so funny because our stories were so similar. Like we were working in corporate America, left that crazy life to start our own coaching businesses, although we're different kinds of coaches.
Right. But that's how we like complemented each other. It's like you focus on the physical, a lot internal too. And then I focus on like internal spiritual, which complements the whole thing.
Exactly. You guys, Stephanie is an incredible coach. I'm going to shameless plug you. The Joy Method, you guys, and we're standing at the top of 2021. Like, what would be more amazing than to fill our lives with joy this year? So amazing.
We're going to get to that.
Right.
Yes.
But so far, we're a few days into 2021. How's it been for you?
Ready for the new year. It's like it's here a few days, and I think I'm still like sniffing it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let me just be safe around. Like, let me just, what's what, slow and steady.
Feel it out. I love that. And I think too, it's also like clearing the fog of 2020.
Yeah.
Which is actually a bit of what today's episode is all about. Like, let's clear the fog. So today's episode is answering all of your questions. So some of you submitted questions by email or social media, and all of them were wonderful. So that's why we're here today. Stephanie's going to help. Stephanie has the list of questions, right?
Mm-hmm. I got
Amazing.
it. It's ready. And we're just going to do a little, Q&A. They'll all be, obviously health related because you're the expert, and then we'll have some fun with it.
Awesome. So really quick, before we dive in, I want to let our members know what they're getting this week. So guys, it's January, and potentially you're recommitting to your health and your wellness. So I'm offering all of you the option to participate in a challenge. So you can choose 14 or 30 days. You get structure, accountability, one-on-one coaching, and community with our Facebook group. So our members are getting 15% off either challenge. And to help you, your recipe this week is a detox-friendly recipe for portobello mushroom and onion spaghetti squash. So the squash is in parentheses, right? So it's simple and delicious, a great one for all of us to kind of keep in our back pocket, whether, we're actually doing a full-on detox or just want to clean things up. And if you're not on detox, add some Parmesan cheese or a little truffle oil. Ooh.
That sounds
I'm ready to eat this now.
Yeah, I'm like, please, can I be part of this? Can you give me some of that?
Right. So if you're ready to eat this too, all you have to do is make sure you're a member. So go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries for just $10 a month. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions with me. And last quarter and the couple times in 2020, we did those as a one-on-one. Today, you're getting 15% off. Like, this is a serious bargain at $10 a month, and free if you take advantage of all of these offerings. So show yourself that your health is a priority with this membership. Plus, by being a member, you support this podcast and this community so that we can continue bringing you new episodes and experts every single week. So remember, just head to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries or click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, click support now, enter your email, payment method, click subscribe, and that's it. You're all set. 15% off your 14 or 30-day challenge and this week's recipe for the portobello mushroom and onion spaghetti squash. All right. Okay. Stephanie, question 1. What do we got?
Let's do this. So I think this one is like an oldie but a goodie that people still get confused on.
Yeah.
Can I be drinking too much water? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah. So interesting. So technically, yes, it can be a thing, but the likelihood of any of us getting there is pretty slim. So I always give the guideline of 8 by 8. So 8 glasses, 8 ounces each of water every day. That gives you 64 ounces.
Easy.
The guidelines, like technical guidelines, say on average, especially if you exercise, you're thinking probably half of your body weight in ounces, right?
Yeah.
So that gives you, likely it's more than 64 ounces. 64 is a good place to start, that 8 by 8. If you were really getting too much water, it would be an excessive amount and you would likely have like very soft stool, a nice way to put it. And you're likely to also have vitamin deficiencies because you have a lot of water soluble vitamins. So if you're drinking that much water, you're likely to see some vitamin deficiencies. But I would say in general, this is not necessarily something most people need to be concerned about.
I think that's so good. And I love the 64. It's like easy. Just remember that and drink some water.
Right. When in doubt, just have a little water.
Just have some water. This next one up is talking about reflux. So he says, all anonymous. What should I do about my reflux? It happens mostly at night and it's really uncomfortable.
So this is interesting. Funny enough that this is coming after the water one. So I did have a client years ago whose reflux was being activated because he was drinking so much water. But essentially what happens with reflux is that the valve at the top of our stomach isn't closing. And so the juices, for lack of a better word, like the acids from our stomach are coming up into sort of like the esophagus, right? And so sometimes it's heartburn, sometimes it's reflux, like we can call it a bunch of different things. So the biggest thing to think about is if you have issues with that valve staying closed, you want to stay upright after you eat.
That makes sense.
Maybe, right? Like maybe go for a walk after you eat to help your body sort of process everything. There are certainly sometimes certain foods that can upset it. You'll want to start to pay attention to when it's worse and when it's better. But the biggest things would be stay upright after you eat. And especially if it's happening at night, like we really want our last meal to be about 2 hours before going to bed. So if you're eating right before bed and then you're having this gastric upset, like there's a connection there. And then sometimes, digestive enzymes can also sometimes help just to support the digestive process and help our body sort of do that more efficiently. And that can help, fewer acids sort of from coming up. It can just help the digestive process, like the walking to some degree.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like don't eat before going to bed, and then just go for a little walk because potentially that could solve it.
And sorry, side note, I would just stay away from a lot of the prescriptions and over-the-counter medications that are designed for this. It can actually create other deficiencies and other problems in the body. So the more you can focus on doing this through our nutritional choices, the better.
Like holistically. I love that. Yes. People be popping those things all the time. I'm like, just change what you're eating and then you're going to take that stuff.
Right. Easier said than done.
Right. It is easier said than done. So when it comes to working out, one of the questions is, why do I need to warm up when I work out? Like, is it, and I'm assuming this was like before I work out, but is it really that important to warm up the body?
Yeah, so this is a good one. And Stephanie, you're also actually a spin instructor. So you know this one. But the whole thing is if we go to do some sort of intense or rigorous exercise without getting the blood flowing and getting our muscles used to moving, there's a higher likelihood of injury. So the objective of the warm up is to exactly that, warm up the muscles to be ready to do more strenuous work or more strenuous activity. And so it helps protect our muscles, our bones, our tendons, our ligaments, all the things.
I love that. It's more like preventing, it's like, I mean, you don't have to. And again, I'm not the expert, but I'm thinking for myself, like if I want to prevent injury, you might as well warm up a little bit, if you
It
don't want
doesn't have
to.
to be, yeah,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be like crazy. It's not like half your workout is this warm up. Like it could be 60 seconds of lifting your knees up and putting your arms above your head, like just getting the blood flow happening and you're getting your body used to moving.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. This one up next. Okay, so I'm also really curious about this because I hear things all the time. So, how important is exercise when it comes to weight loss? Like, is it all about the food? If I'm eating right, do I still have to work out? I always hear different percentages, like food is all that matters or working out and right? Like,
Right.
just let us know once and for all. Like, what is it, the food and the exercise?
So, this is hard because, yes, exercise is critical for not just weight loss, but our health, right? Muscle works in such a way where if you don't use it, you lose it. Our heart is a very important muscle. So if we're not exercising our heart, right, we got a lot of health problems. So we really need to move our body. And remember, muscle dictates metabolism. Muscle is metabolically active. So if we don't have as much muscle, we're not burning as much fuel. And if we don't use it, we lose it. So if we did all this exercise to help our body and built up our muscle to help our body get to our, goal, whatever that is, I sort of put that in air quotes, right? And then we stop doing the things that got there, it's not a check the box and we're done kind of thing. We have to keep doing the things that got us to that place.
Hmm.
The other side of that is that, as I always say, you can't outrun your fork. So, how many times a day in an ideal world do you exercise?
Like once.
In an ideal world?
Like once, like daily, right?
Oh,
No?
once a day. Okay,
Yeah,
right. Once a
that's how I
day.
got it. Hmm.
Once a day. So, like 7 times in a week.
Hmm.
You know, well, if that's the case, how many times do we eat? Generally, at least 3 times a day, I
Right, like
hope,
3, 4 times a day. Right,
right?
right.
Like, I hope we're eating regularly. So if we're eating 21 times a week and we're working out 7 times a week, we cannot outrun our fork. So
Right.
those food choices become really important, right? So, like, if you're feeling like you're doing the exercise and not getting the results, we wanna look at the food. And if you feel like you're doing all the things right with the food and you're not getting the results, we want to look at the exercise because they work together. And, there is sort of a weird balance between them, and each person is different in that way of what they need. But we can't look at each in isolation.
I love that. I think that's so important because basically what you're saying is just like, just be curious about what you're doing, right? Just be honest. Like, hey, maybe I'm eating a little too many sweets and I'm not walking as much or whatever. Or, maybe I'm walking too much, but I'm not I don't know. It's like do what works for you, but to have like a one rule of like it needs to be this and you need to eat like this, it's like we're each so different. So that feels like
Yeah.
very freeing within that answer.
Good. And the last piece on exercise, this isn't really the question, but intensity changes the body. If you're doing something for your exercise every single day, but it doesn't really feel like, you're pushing yourself at all. Like, even if you're walking, like maybe do a little uphill, a little down here, a little faster, a little slower, like changing it up, changing up the intensity of what we're doing changes the body. So if you're not feeling any intensity ever, it's likely that exercise, it gets your blood flowing, but it may not be giving you what you need to change the body.
I like that. Oh, that's so good. Okay, this one is interesting. It says, okay, so do I need to take a multivitamin? I'm so confused between the people that say you get all of your vitamins and nutrition and all the minerals through food, and then the people who say you don't get it through the food, and then I do need to take a multivitamin. Like, what's what, right? Like, do I need to? Do I just eat really good food?
Yeah. So I take a multivitamin every single day. I think that the understanding the average person's nutrition, we're not all only eating the textbook perfect plan every single day all the time. So we want to think about a multivitamin as filling in the gaps where our nutrition falls short. Having said that, we can't supplement our way out of poor nutrition. Like taking a multivitamin doesn't mean that you don't eat vegetables and fruit, you know? And realizing too, our food supply, when you look at the actual vitamin and mineral content in studies of our fruits and vegetables, it's not the same as it was a few years ago. And there's a lot of schools of thought around, you know, if that's actually the case, if it's not the case, like the bottom line is when you look at the nutrient content in a lot of these studies, it is different.
Hmm.
And especially, I think we live in New York. I think people are much more aware of um, locally grown and organic and things like that. But especially if what we're eating are a lot of genetically modified foods, again, the nutrient content is different. So I'm a big fan of a multivitamin. However, I say that with the caveat that I am not a big fan of every multivitamin. Like they're not all the same. They are not all created equal. If it makes you nauseous when you take it, we have a challenge, right? If you don't notice a difference on the days you take it and the days you don't, it's likely that your body's not actually absorbing what you're taking and it can actually pass through. Like some of them, there's a doctor I work with who has an x-ray of a patient where you can see the vitamin through the GI tract, like the one from today, the one from yesterday, the one from 2 days ago.
Stop.
And in one of them, like if you zoom in, you can actually see the brand name still on the pill.
I'm gonna, I know you can't tell me, but that's such a juicy thing. I'm like, tell me the brand.
Right.
So nobody takes this thing. That is wild.
So we want to just make sure, like we want to avoid the binders and the fillers and the coatings and the things that our body can't break down. So like if we can't break it down, we're not getting the benefit of what's in it. So congrats to you. I love that you're taking a multivitamin and let's upgrade you to something that your body's actually absorbing. So let's do this. I'll put the multivitamin that I take I'll put a link to it in the show notes for everybody.
That's such a good
Just
idea.
make it easier.
Yeah, and one quick question on that. You mentioned about getting nauseous or not. Sometimes I have heard that some vitamins, eat them with food, and some of them you can eat them on an empty stomach. So even if you get nauseous, could it also be maybe because you didn't eat, but it's not like it's not right for you?
Yes. Yeah. It's likely what's happening is you didn't eat, but it's a pill that needs to be broken down. And so, almost similar to that reflux question, your stomach is working, like all the acids are going to try to break down this pill, but there's nothing else there to absorb all of that. So, it's like working a lot to break down this little pill. And that's creating some of the nausea. It could also be sometimes the nausea is caused by having certain ingredients and certain amounts together.
Mm. So more to go to you when they get nauseous. It's like, hey, let's investigate what's what, because it could be a few different things.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, ah, the world of vitamins. Okay,
I know.
so this one we're shifting gears a little bit. This is a really fun question, and also because I love this. Snacking, like snacks are so fun. So they want to know. This person wants to know, what's your favorite healthy snack?
So let's see. There's a few, right? First of all, I want to preface this by saying the only thing that qualifies as a snack versus a meal is how much we're having. So if you enjoyed dinner last night, have some of it as a snack.
Right. You mean like literally the quantity or the calories or whatever would make it a
Yeah.
snack. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and always, we're always focusing on protein and fiber. So, protein is clean, lean protein, fiber is veggies, and sometimes fruit. So, I had a snack earlier of blueberries and some walnuts and almonds. So, I got my quality fat, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of, a little fiber in the nuts, but mostly fat and a little protein. And then the blueberries were my fiber. And it was like delicious, sort of like that sweet and savory thing. Like I'm big on sweet and
Okay.
savory.
Yes.
So I'll also I like gala apples. I don't know. That's my gala apples. And then, so almond butter, natural peanut butter, again, like that sweet and savory. I'll also, so I used to have a grocery store by my old apartment where in the deli counter, they had an actual whole fresh roasted turkey that they would slice like deli turkey. So you
Hmm.
didn't have to have like the processed deli meat. Like you could actually get fresh deli meat just sliced like, easy to use. So sometimes I'll take that and put the turkey with my apple. It's like that sweet and salty thing.
Hmm.
I don't do a lot of cheese, but cheese can be a great snack. So whether that's cheese with fruit or um cheese with a little, if you do like cheese with protein, you're sort of getting a little bit of protein with more protein. So you would still want to find something in there to be your fiber, whether it's like put it in a lettuce wrap and get some fiber from the lettuce, like butter lettuce and romaine sort of naturally make really good wraps,
So good.
right?
Yes, and they're bigger. They can hold stuff in.
Yeah. Um I'm trying to think what other healthy snacks as far as like bars or packaged things, I have a really hard time. Um, I do sometimes eat the Think Thin, although they rebranded to just Think, but their creamy peanut butter bar has quite a bit of protein. So I'll do that with some fruit, whether that's berries or an apple. Um, Carrots and celery with hummus is a good one. Or I also do carrots and celery with almond butter or peanut butter because I have a slight obsession with almond butter and peanut butter, right? um, but that's a bunch of healthy snacks, but I think it gives us a range like, and I think like you said before, like we like to snack. I think we don't necessarily need to get caught up on, oh, but I eat that for a meal. Like if you like it, eat it.
I love that you said that. Like, and I don't know, I have no problem with leftovers. So I love the idea of like, oh, a snack can be what I had yesterday, just in a smaller portion.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. Those are really fun ones. Okay, so this one it says, okay, so does the body really have a set point? Can it change? And then she says, or he says, every year when I go to the doctor, I am the exact same weight, even when some years I feel different, my clothes feel different, or I'm wearing a different size. Oh, I love this question.
Yeah. So, yes, your body does have a set point. Like when we think about homeostasis, right? Our body craving to stay even and normal and like in the same place, right? We almost have this set point where our body is really happy and comfortable. Yes, it can change over time, right? So my body's default now is very different than where I was, you know, 15, 17 years ago when I was in the middle of struggling with my weight, right? So it can change. But the most interesting piece of this question is actually the last part where it was talking about how,
Right.
the weight is the same, but sometimes my clothes fit different, or I'm wearing a different size, or I feel different. And this is why, one of many reasons why the number on the scale is like the worst barometer, right? So that's why we want to also measure our body fat percentage and our tape measurements, right? So you could be the same weight on the scale, but your body fat could be different. And that would then lead to wearing a different size at the same weight, whether that's bigger or smaller, right?
Yes.
And we see those differences with the tape measure and with our clothes and with our energy. So, yes, there's a set point. Yes, it can change. But the real value, I think, in this question is understanding that we want to be measuring more than just that number on the scale.
Yeah, that's so important. I've read about that too before. Like somebody could be, I don't know, 140 and be like a size 10, I have no idea, or be 140 and be a size 2, depending on like the muscle and like you said, all that stuff. So yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Exactly. Before the next question, let's take a quick pause for a message from our partner for this episode, Lumiere de Vie Skincare. So Lumiere de Vie was founded by Amber Ridinger McLaughlin in response to her own experience of mere marginal results from countless costly creams. She realized the revitalization of her youthful skin could only occur if she developed the products herself. Working closely with beauty scientists and exploring the most advanced ingredients derived from the earth and sea, Amber created Lumiere de Vie, the next generation of skincare. The extensive line of luxury skincare products is designed to address all skin types and concerns, including uneven texture or tone, dryness, and fatigue skin. With the highest quality natural ingredients and powerful formulas that help heal, soothe, moisturize, and protect, Lumiere de Vie acts as first aid for your skin. The result? Rejuvenated, luminous, beautiful looking skin. So it's now the new year. Maybe one of the commitments on your list for 2021 is self-care, right? Although I think everybody talked about self-care in 2020, but maybe it's on those list of priorities for 2021. And what if you could practice self-care in your morning and evening routine? Like every time you wash your face. And I say that because that's how I feel. Like I use Lumiere de Vie every morning and night, and it feels like I'm having a facial every time. Like it's just the best. So I offer that as a way to say, build it into your routine so that self-care is happening all the time, no matter what. And they made it super easy to do that. You can get started with the Lumiere de Vie skincare value kits. So the women's kit gives you the cleanser, the toner, and the intense rejuvenation cream, all for $125. The men's kit gives you the Lumiere de Vie Homme cleansing gel, restoring serum, and hydrating aloe cream, all for $90. So what a gift to give yourself, right? Building self-care into your routine, and we get to help you do it with a discount. So to get 10% off your order, text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word SKIN to 844-947-4846 to try Lumiere de Vie Skincare and get 10% off. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. All right. So next question, please. Wait, that's like a movie quote or that's from something.
So, next question, please. So this one is so good because it's all about hormones. So, what's the deal with hormones and aging and weight gain? Am I stuck with this extra weight packed on later in life? I'm really curious to hear about this one.
Okay, so yes, it is chemical and biological that our metabolism slows down over time. And that change actually even starts in our 20s. So technically, it sort of gets slower from our 20s into our 30s into our 40s, and onward. So, according to the US Department of Health and Human Services, metabolism slows about 5% every 10 years after age 40. But we're not doomed, right? Like a lot of that is a function of hormone changes, which causes a change in the metabolic rate. But we also know, as we talked about before, muscle dictates metabolism. And so we can certainly keep our metabolism burning by making sure that we continue to work out. And again, we can use some herbs and supplements and some nutrients to help support our body's proper metabolic function and metabolic rate. And focusing on the muscle helps our metabolism. The other thing to think about is also as we age, like beyond 50s, your body probably needs fewer calories than certainly than it did when you were in your 20s, right? But even than it did maybe 10 years ago. So it's also important to maintain proper nutrition. So as we age, our hunger might be different. So sometimes people are still eating the way they did 20 years ago, even though maybe they're getting up there chronologically, right? Sometimes it's a function of I'm not that hungry, so I'll just eat a few crackers. Well, crackers aren't giving our body what we need generally, right? So it's a whole bunch of factors. Yes, our hormones play a role, right? We also know about leptin. If you listen often, we've talked about leptin, that hormone that tells us when we're satisfied, ghrelin, the hormone that tells us when we're hungry. So, yes, it's like the testosterone and the estrogen, but it's also these other hormones like leptin, ghrelin, insulin, and all these other metabolic factors that we want to keep in mind. So it's biological, but it's not doom and gloom.
Yeah, it's like it's not an excuse or whatever, like, oh, now I'm however old, like I guess like here's what I'm gonna be stuck with. It's like, no, there are other things that you can look at. I love that. That's very freeing, to be able to like feel empowered no matter how old you are when it comes to your weight. Um, this is a fun one, especially because, I feel like in the new year, everybody's thinking about potentially weight loss goals. How can I determine the best goals for my weight loss?
This is a good question. So it's so individual. So this is definitely a little challenging to sort of give like a blanket answer. Um, but think about why you're doing this, right? What will be different in your life without the weight? That's where we want to set our goals. Less about the scale and more about the what will be different, the result, the impact, the effect of not carrying around these extra pounds. So I would say start there. And then we can also remember we want to look at body composition. So I would set some goals around body fat percentage. We recommend for our kids to focus on 0.5% body fat every 2 weeks. So as an adult, maybe that's a little bit more. But so thinking about it in those terms, we want to make sure that they're reasonable. The other thing that I want to say about goals, as we're again standing at the beginning of this year, think about process goals versus result or outcome goals. So, for example, the outcome goal is the change on the scale, the change in body fat percentage, the change in our measurements, the size clothes we're going to be wearing. The process goal is I'm going to eat an energizing breakfast most days of the week. I'm going to eat a healthful lunch most days of the week. I'm going to stay away from alcohol most days of the week, whatever it is. But these process things, I'm going to move my body every day in some way. When we focus on the process and fall in love with the process, the results are inevitable. And I think a lot of times what happens when we talk about, resolutions, they're very much outcome things. And then we get lost in, well, what am I supposed to do to get to that outcome? So if we set the goals or the intentions or the objectives around the process, we'll inevitably get to those outcomes.
Oh, I love that so much, Jen. That made so much sense. I always tell my clients in coaching, start where you want to end. So if you want to end feeling really good about your body and like loving your body, you need to start by falling in love with the process and being like, oh, how do I love my body today? Or I love my body so much that I'm going to eat all this delicious foods versus like
Exactly.
the process. And it's like, you're probably not going to get to where you want to get because it's like the whole process was like the biggest pain. So start where you want to end makes the whole process just much more enjoyable and easier.
Exactly. And you're exactly right as far as to understanding, like, talk to ourselves now maybe it feels like as if, but talk to ourselves now that we're already there and thinking about the things that we're doing. We're doing those things because we love our body versus because we hate our
Yes.
body.
Yes.
And you're such an energy healer person, but like the energy around the food we eat and our exercise completely shifts when we're doing it because we love ourselves as opposed to doing it because we're punishing ourselves.
Oh, I love that so much. And the joy method, I talk about that, like love yourself into change.
Yes.
Don't change
Oh,
because you hate yourself, right? So it's like, ooh, this is when we're getting in the meat of it.
yeah.
That's so beautiful. Love yourself into your weight loss goals. This is a fun one. What are empty calories?
Oh, this is a good one. Okay,
Yeah.
so empty calories are foods that we eat that are void of nutrition. So we're eating food, but it's not giving our body protein, quality fat, fiber, vitamins, or minerals. If we're not getting any nutrients, anything that our body knows what to do with, right? We're
Hmm.
eating food, we're eating calories, but it's not giving us anything. So that's what people say, or that's what people mean when they say empty calories.
Yeah, that makes it so good. It's like you can still enjoy your glass of wine, but you're probably not going to get any like minerals and protein and like still have it, but just know that like,
Right. Like, let's not fool ourselves. We're not getting any value out of it nutritionally,
right,
you know?
exactly. Like it's still a ton of fun value, but
Right.
no nutrition value. Um, Perfect. This next one, personally, I cannot say I relate because I don't do this, but I know a lot of people do. So they say, I need sweetener in my coffee. Apologies for, the honk in the background. It's
Oh,
just,
New York City.
it's just what you're going to get. I need sweetener in my coffee and in my yogurt. What sweetener should I use? Does it matter if it's real or artificial? Yeah, the world of
Yeah,
sweeteners.
this is a good one. And we did a whole episode about sugar. So before we talk about which sweeteners, understand that sweet is an acquired taste. So the more we have it, the more we want it.
I never knew that.
The more we had it, the more we have it, the more of it we need for something to register as sweet. So for people who add sweetener to their coffee, you know how sometimes they'll start with one packet of whatever and then over time they're up to like 3 or 4?
Yes.
It's because after a while the taste buds adjust and that one packet no longer tastes sweet. So across the board, whether it's artificial or real or whatever sweetener, adding those things into our nutrition keeps us addicted to that taste. So we want to wean ourselves off of that and use less over time. When it comes to understanding our blood sugar, because if you're here all the time, we talk a lot about blood sugar, right? And when we want to keep our blood sugar in this middle range where we're not having these spikes and drops. So with sweeteners, both, there are some that are both natural and artificial that maybe don't impact our blood sugar the same way. So sugar alcohols are artificial, they don't impact our blood sugar. So some people who have maybe medical conditions might want to stay away from even the real sweeteners if they have the potential, right, to spike our blood sugar. So there may be times where some of those artificial choices are better. On the more natural side, agave or stevia are lower glycemic, right? So they impact our blood sugar less than something like honey. The other side of that is sometimes stevia or agave can be even sweeter. So the biggest thing to take into consideration is how much are we using and how is it impacting our blood sugar? And over time, our objective is to use less.
I love that. Have you ever tried monk fruit?
Yeah, monk fruit sweetener is amazing.
It's
Highly
so good.
recommend it. It is natural and low glycemic. It's great. It's just some people have a hard time finding it, but great one.
If you find it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of stevia. I don't like that little taste on the background.
It definitely has an aftertaste. And also, depending on how you're using it. So, using it in coffee, like honey in coffee is probably going to taste weird. Honey and yogurt
Delicious.
is fine. Right. The stevia sometimes too, like if you use a lot of it, can have like that weird aftertaste or, and if you're trying to cook with it, some work better at higher temperatures than others. So there's a lot of considerations. But in this example with like coffee and yogurt,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. This is a fun one. Can you eat too much fruit? And I'm assuming in the context of like maybe weight loss or, in general, but yeah, what's up with like fruit?
Yeah, especially when it comes to sugar, because fruit has fructose. That's the sugar from fruit. Fruit's gotten like a bad reputation over the years where people are like, especially when they think about their nutrition or their health, they're like, oh no, I can't eat fruit. I'm trying to lose weight. Like, so I want to back up to say, keep your common sense. Like, no one died from eating too much fruit, as far as I know, right? No one died from eating too much fruit. So, like, if we're eating fruit as opposed to candy bars for something sweet, go for it. Like, congrats, way to go. Awesome decisions. If we're getting to a point where we're eating tons of fruit and not vegetables, we want to focus on getting more of the vegetables than the fruit. If we're in a place where those are the decisions we're making, first of all, what an amazing place to be. And second of all, yes, focus more on the vegetables than the fruit. I would say, typically what we recommend is during detox, capping your fruit at 3 per day. And in regular life, outside of, a gentle detox, we typically want to cap the fruit around 2 a day.
Which makes sense.
But yeah, but also like if you're eating a third fruit instead of eating a Twix, like eat the third fruut.
I love her face. I can see Jen on the screen and her eyes are like, just eat it. I love my favorite thing that I've been doing now that it's like a little cooler. I do like stewed apples in the morning, so
Yum.
it's like cinnamon and I do put a little bit of ghee in it. And then just like all these warm spices with a little bit of water and then they get soft. And
Sounds
it's
amazing.
first thing in the morning. And that way my stomach is not like trying to digest sometimes
Yeah.
pancake or whatever it is. But it's
By
like
the way, I'm coming over for breakfast.
yes, come. So that's a nice one. And the thing with fruit is like you can play. There's so many ways that you can like cut an apple, whatever, slice an apple, that you can also get creative with all of that.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have a few more left. The final countdown. So I'm eating about a question. I'm eating 1,200 calories per day and working out. Why am I not losing weight? This person says.
Ooh, okay. So this goes back to a lot of times this is like that calories in, calories out thing. And the truth is, similar to what we were just saying about the fruit, like 1,200 calories of vegetables and fruit and chicken and fish is very different than 1,200 calories of Twinkies and Twix and jelly beans. So looking at the calories isn't going to get us where we want to be. What we want to look at, this also goes back to those empty calories, right? We want to look at the quality of those calories. So instead of thinking calories in, calories out, think quality in, quality out, get up and move more. So I love that you're working out. And then when it comes to the nutrition piece, we want to dig a little deeper. What are those 1,200 calories made of? And are we giving our body what it needs?
That's a good one. I love that. All right, let's talk about non-negotiables. What foods are non-negotiable to keep in your house and then to keep out of your house? What's like the in pile and the out pile?
This is funny. So I think my non negotiables to keep in the house all the time are eggs, carrots and celery, and like either arugula or spinach. Apples keep for a while. So I'm big on apples and berries. Um, I'll typically do also like if I'm doing a grocery run, you know, even like a rotisserie chicken or some sort of prepared protein where it requires less work on my part to get a meal together.
Yes.
The non-negotiables to keep out of my house. I don't, I've gotten to a place where I don't think there's anything that's like a never. There are definitely the foods that are on occasion. So the on occasion foods are like some crackers. Like I love the Mary's Gone crackers.
Yes, they're so good.
Like they're actually made of whole grain, which I love. They're super crunchy and have so much flavor. They don't love me as much as I love them. And I would also say that like my portion sizes with them tend to be indulgent. So I don't keep those around all the time. Um on occasion I'll do like pasta to have their even like a chickpea pasta or a lentil pasta so that it's like when I'm really running low there's something there, but it's not something I eat all the time. And I mean, obviously, you guys know I love French fries. Those tend to be eaten like out of my home. And then the other thing is cookie dough, because if there are things I will never give up, it is peanut butter, cookie dough, and French fries. Um, and the cookie dough situation is I just don't keep it around all the time. Like once in a while, I'll have it. And I sort of play a game with myself to see how long I can make it last. Um, but I like to think like there's nothing that's really non-negotiable out. There are just things that are on occasion in.
Right. They're like seasons that you're like, oh, I love that. I love what you said about keeping food that's like ready to go. I do that with my veggies. Like,
Yes,
yes, you pay a little bit more, but if I can get my celery and my carrots and my broccoli that's already cut and I just have to put it and saute it, like it's for sure gonna get eaten. If I have to cut it, it's like it's a 50-50 chance it may not make it out of the fridge.
exactly. It becomes the thing that I eat the last and then has the chance of going bad before I get to it.
Yes, yes. Okay, and for the final question, this is like a two-part question. So, what's the number one thing you tell your clients that gets them results? And what's the number one thing that they do based on all of your experience that have gotten them results?
Ooh, this is loaded.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I think the number one thing I tell everybody, and I say this to you too, protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. Because when we start with a foundation of nutrition and understanding how that can even us out and how that can make us feel, a lot of the food decisions that up to now have been very emotional, like we feel like we have no willpower or we feel like we just suck, we can't follow, we can't do the things, right? A lot of that emotion gets removed when we start with that foundation, both chemically and intellectually and emotionally. So, protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. And then I think the other thing they do that gets them results. So, I can't even pick one. It's definitely a combination, right?
I see you being like, what do I do? What do I? Oh, so much.
Because there isn't one thing. There isn't one thing that got us here, and there isn't one thing that's going to get us out of it either. You know, when we think about our nutrition, our exercise, right? So, body composition, building muscle, our nutrition to make sure that we're never storing fat and we're eating to keep our body fueled and our metabolism going. Um, the other thing I think is tracking our food,
Mm.
which allows us to identify the patterns. And that's where we get to see the shift in our habits and our behaviors. And we start to notice when we reach for the sugary foods, when we reach for the high glycemic foods. Is it always stress? Because for you, it might be stress. And for me, it might be, when I'm tired. Or we start to identify the patterns. And that's where, stress management and sleep and all these other things come into play. But if I try to boil that down to something, what allows us to notice a lot of that and figure out what the habits and behaviors are, I think it's the tracking that gets us to managing the nutrition, the exercise, the sleep, and the stress.
Ah, that's so good. I love because every time we talk about health, it's like I always feel so empowered because it's ultimately like a journey of self-discovery. Like there's not going to be the one magic pill that's going to get you to be in this perfect body, in this perfect weight, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't know, you kind of need to go on a journey and figure out like what's what.
Exactly. And it helps to have a guide on that journey,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
but realize like there isn't a one size fits all.
Just be okay
And
with that. Like that's
yeah,
the way it goes.
yeah, be willing to explore, be willing to sort of be in that experiment.
I love that. So those are the questions.
Amazing. We did it. Okay, so that means it is time for our nutrition nugget. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. So this week we're talking about FODMAP. And you're like, for what? I know. FODMAP, spelled F as in Frank, O, D as in dog, M as in Mary, A, P as in Paul. So maybe you've heard about it, like people saying, oh, I'm on a low or no FODMAP diet, right? So let me explain. So FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates. So it actually stands for fermentable oligo monosaccharides and polyols. So that's the FODMAP. So it typically comes into play when someone has a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, or sometimes even with SIBO. And it's characterized like stomach pain, bloating, reflux, flatulence, like bowel urgency, right? Like we're running to the bathroom. And by the way, SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So it's these gastrointestinal diagnoses that often create a challenge. So these fermentable carbohydrate foods trigger, for some people, that gastrointestinal upset. So some of the foods, and I want to preface this by saying that this list is not comprehensive, right? The list of FODMAP foods is long, right? What I want to do is give you a few examples of what falls into each category. And it's also complicated because some foods contain one kind of FODMAP and then other foods contain a variety of types. And so again, it goes back to that experimentation. It requires us to experiment. So looking at the 4 groups of FODMAPs. So oligosaccharides are typically found in wheat, rye, beans, some fruits and vegetables like garlic and onions. Disaccharides are found in milk, yogurt, soft cheeses, right? Places where lactose is the main carbohydrate. Monosaccharides are found in a lot of fruits like figs and mangoes, sweeteners like honey and agave. So monosaccharides are where fructose is the main carbohydrate. Then polyols, again, found in some fruits and vegetables, blackberries, lychee, and some low calorie sweeteners can have this effect too. So think about like sugar alcohols or some of the sweeteners that are used in sugar-free gum. So as you can see, right, there's a lot of foods and it's not easy to eliminate some of these things. So what they do see though is that eliminating these, if you have these gastrointestinal challenges, can be helpful, but it is an incredibly restrictive plan. It's not designed to be no FODMAP for extended periods of time. The idea is that you do low FODMAP as an elimination diet to test the foods and determine which ones are triggering your upset. And then you only keep those out for the long term, right? As one doctor at Johns Hopkins put it, he said, and I quote, a short discovery process, right? So before we even go into like the elimination diet, if you do have some of these diagnoses or these issues, start with looking at your stress, avoiding alcohol, caffeine, spicy food, and dairy. So start with those again before we go to something that's so crazy restrictive and such a wide variety of foods. If your symptoms persist after looking at stress, alcohol, caffeine, spicy food, and dairy, then you can move to a low or no FODMAP plan to test various foods. So here's how you do it. It's the same as what we've talked about with gluten and nightshades, right? We eliminate it for a couple weeks, typically about 2 weeks at a minimum. Then you try one serving of one food at one meal and return to that low FODMAP nutrition for 3 days, because sometimes our symptoms can show up a couple days later. So notice your symptoms. Are they better, worse, the same? Then you try the next food and do the same thing, leaving 3 days between each test. So as you can see, this is a long, tedious process, and it requires a tremendous commitment to your health. So the objective, though, is to determine which foods are triggering or exacerbating your symptoms. And then, like I said, those are the only ones that you avoid. The rest you add back in. Because eliminating a lot of these foods for the long term is not great, right? So I'll get to that in a second. If you are working on this elimination diet and you're not sure what to add, right, when you're cutting out all these things, you'll likely focus on eggs and meat, cheeses like brie or feta. You can do almond milk. You could have rice, quinoa, whole oats, eggplant, potatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, grapes, oranges, strawberries, blueberries, pineapple. You can actually Google list of, the FODMAP and the no FODMAP. And so you can find a complete list of foods that you can choose when you're working on this. Again, that list is also not exhaustive of the foods that you can add in instead of the FODMAP foods. So I will say, though, the studies on removing them are really powerful. So if you experience some of these GI symptoms or you've been diagnosed with these diseases, addressing them through your nutrition can be incredibly powerful. So studies show that a low FODMAP diet improves the odds of stomach pain by 81% and improves bloating by 75%. So really great. Other studies show improvements in the flatulence, diarrhea, constipation, all the gastro upset. So like I said, though, there's a catch because just like with gluten or nightshades, if you haven't been diagnosed, following a low FODMAP nutrition plan does not necessarily mean that we're healthier, because a lot of these foods are actually prebiotics, which means they support the good gut bacteria growth, like what we need. So the bottom line, if you hear someone talking about following a low FODMAP diet, now you understand what it is, right? That it's really about a medical diagnosis and working to eliminate the symptoms through lifestyle and food choices. The common factor of these foods is that they contain fermentable carbohydrates. And if you've not been diagnosed or do not experience these gastrointestinal upset issues on a regular basis, do not unnecessarily eliminate these foods because they are beneficial for most of us. There we have it. We did it. The
Ah,
story on FODMAP.
yeah, that was actually really good because I've heard about that before, and people usually that have like bloating and things like that. But I'm like, whoa, I'm so glad you made it simple. I didn't have to look into it, but you hear people talking about it, so I'm like, what is that thing? And I feel like
Yeah.
now I have an idea. And yeah, I understood it perfectly.
Awesome. Yay. Well, Stephanie, thank you again for being here today.
You're so welcome. This was so fun. I felt like that game show host,
Right.
like next question, it was
Awesome. And tell everybody, by the way, as the joy coach,
great.
tell everybody where to learn more.
Yes, come hang out on Instagram. That's where I'm the most, on at Stephanie Verschow. And you can learn more about all things inner work and spirituality and intuition and energy healing and all that good stuff.
Amazing. And the joy method starts again
Yeah.
soon, right?
Starts in like 2, 3 weeks on January 20th. It's a brand new round. It's 8 weeks that we're going to be together. And the Joy Method, Joy stands for Journey of You. So it's a journey of you. It's like inner work that you're going to be doing, whether you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur or a mom. And you're like, I need to focus on me. Like there's something off within me. So we go on this beautiful journey for 8 weeks. And the round is officially open. So if you find me on Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio and get more information.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate your time. Once again, everybody, Happy New Year. As always, I'm your host, Jen Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram at Jen Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Our Facebook page is at the same handle. So DM me to submit your questions, ideas, key takeaways. It's also the best way to learn more about working with me directly. And of course, if you're not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or click the link in the show notes so that you can support this podcast, this community, and your health, of course, right? This week, your recipe is for the detox-friendly portobello mushroom and onion spaghetti squash, and 15% off my 14 or 30-day challenge. It's that time to recommit, and we are here to help you. So with that, wishing you a most wonderful new year. May 2021 be your best yet, and we will see you every week back here on Wednesday. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.